All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everyone joining me on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program. And as always, it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's holy Sabbath day. Now, before we get started, let me remind you to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Don't forget to smash that notification bell because I don't want you to miss any of our lessons. And if you should feel so inclined to donate, check the description box down below. There are a couple of options, either PayPal or CashApp. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into our lesson. And this is going to be volume 4 of Ask Me Anything, the AMA Ask Me Anything, volume 4. Now, this one, I'll just say at the outset, there's going to be, let's see here, I think one person asked a lot of questions. So shout out to Garden Gal 6405, because as I looked through some of these questions, she asked the most. So I had to pretty much dedicate an entire lesson just answering her questions. But I'm answering right here on the platform for everyone's benefit. So we're going to jump right into it and get some of these responses for her questions, if you will. Go ahead and read the first question.
The first question is, how do we practice to have ears to hear from Yah so we know we are following His will in our daily lives with so many decisions that we need to make each day for work, family, and investments?
All right, so ears to hear. Well, you know that, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, he said, my sheep know my voice. Okay, so when you are one of His, we're going to recognize what it is that He wants us to do. Now, one of the best ways to hear from Him is being on the path, while you're walking in that straight gate, that path of righteousness. When you're kind of walking on there, you're trying to do the right thing, then He, through the Ruach HaKodesh or the Holy Spirit, will try to let us know some things. Sometimes when we get off the path, He try to give us a warning and let us know, hey, you are straying from the path, things like that. So as long as we are attuned, and one of the other ways to have that ear to hear is not to be so distracted. Sometimes we're so distracted and we numb ourselves and we dull our ears, and instead of listening for His voice, because sometimes He has a still, quiet voice. But let's look at Matthew 11 and 15 real quick. I just want to pluck out a few things for you guys. 15, it says here, as it says, this is basically where your question is coming from. He that has ears to hear, let him hear. That meaning those who can understand, right? Because we can hear, you can audibly hear someone and not understand what they're saying, right? So that's what he's talking about, especially particularly when he's doing all these parables. So he'll tell a parable and then he'll say, he that has an ear to hear, let him hear, right? But he just said it, so people heard him, but he's saying as far as understanding and comprehending, right? So it's just like some of the folks outside of this faith, when they read the Bible and they're like, oh, well, I don't get it, I don't understand, those type of things. People who don't believe, people who don't want to know, things like that. It's hard for them. It's writing. It's like reading a letter that's not addressed to you. Okay, so His sheep hear His voice. Let's go on over to Mark 4. Go up one book, Mark 4. And we will read two passages, which would be, the first one would be 9. And again, it says, and he said unto them, he that has ears, let him hear, right? Now, I want you to notice something. He says that like at the end of a parable, of a parable. Sorry, so I'm gonna drop back to 3 real quick, and Mark 4 and 3, and he says, hearken, behold, there went out a sower to sow. And it came to pass, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and fowls of the air came to devour it up. And some fell on the stony ground, where it had not much earth, and immediately it sprang up, because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no fruit. And others fell on good ground, and did yield fruit, that sprang up and increased, and brought forth some 30, some 60, and some 100. And he said unto them, he that had ears, let him hear, right? And so he's giving them the parable. He says, so if you understand. And then he goes to break down the parable, right? just to see if you understand. So if I go to 11, it says, unto you it is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but unto them that are without, those are on the outside, all things are done in parables, so that they won't understand, so they're not going to get it, right? 12, that seeing they may see and not perceive, may not understand, and hearing they may hear and not understand, lest at any time they should be converted and their sins should be forgiven them, right? Some people are marked for hellfire. And he said unto them, know ye not this parable? Do you understand this parable, right? And how, when will ye know all parables? Well, how will you know all parables? You don't understand this one, how are you going to know understand the rest? He said, the sower soweth the word, and these are they by the wayside where the word is sown. But when they have heard, Satan cometh immediately and taketh away the word that was sown in their hearts. And these are they likewise which are sown on stony ground, who, when they have heard the word, immediately received it with gladness, and have no root in themselves, and so endure but for a time afterwards. When afflicted or persecution ariseth for the word's sake, immediately they are offended. Meaning they get, people start talking crazy about, believing in the Bible or being Hebrew and all that. And then people get shamed, they get embarrassed, they don't want people to know. They want to give the whole headache prayer when they pray over their food, stuff like that, because, it's not rooted in them strongly, and they are offended, right? And these are they which are sown among thorns, such as hear the word, and the cares of this world, the opinions of others, and the deceitfulness of riches. Some people sell their soul for riches, and the lust of other things entering in choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. And these are they which are sown on good ground, such as hear the word, receive it, and bring forth fruit, some 34, some 60, and some 100-fold. Some people really get into this thing, and they take off, and they remain in this, and they endure until the end. So to answer your question, how do you do it, how you practice? You keep walking this word, you keep studying this word, and some people will be moved by the Holy Spirit. That's when you'll perceive certain things, particularly in times such as these. We understand, we can feel the winds of change. We see what's going on. We understand we are in a fallen world. Guess what? To others, this feels normal. The people who are of the world, all this feels normal. This is just how it is. Right? But those who are in the world but not of the world, we know something is wrong. We can see it plain as day. And sometimes we wonder why other people don't get it. This is how you know you have an ear to hear. All right, so let's go Matthew 7. Let me back up and give you a little bit more. Matthew 7. And we're going to do 24 to 27. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon rock, and the rain descended, and the flood came, and the winds blew and beat down the house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man who built his house upon sand. And the rain descended, and the flood came, and the winds blew and beat upon the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Right? So some people are going to get into it. They think it's all nice and cute. They think everything's going to be sweet. And then when trouble arises, they abandon it. I've seen many people come in, and I've seen many people go out. Right? So let's see here. Drop down to 13 and 14. This is what I was saying when we're striving to enter in. Right? If we back up, we're still in Matthew 7, but 13, 14 say, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate, or narrow, straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Okay, so I hope that offers you some encouragement. What is Garden Gal's next question?
Okay, next question. How formal do our prayers have to be? Are our thoughts and praying in our mind at work or any time considered a productive prayer life?
That's a good question. That is a good question. Sometimes when we come up in, a lot of us come up in Christianity. It could be charismatic, it could be Baptist, Southern Baptist, Pentecostal. It could be all types of flavors of Christianity. And we see some people who we call prayer warriors, right? And their prayer seems to be a bit performative, and they seem like they're doing great, right? I mean, like, wow, it's like, hey, this person can really get a prayer through because they're eloquent in speech. But we're not to be confused or fooled or baffled by their elocution. That's probably not necessary. It is you having a conversation with the Most High, and it has a lot to do with your disposition, right? As a person, your posturing, your disposition. Not there aren't any magic words. There's only sincerity in your words. Okay, sincerity in there, right? And sometimes when and when you're on the path, you can go boldly before the throne of grace. All right, but we're going to look at a couple things. I have a lesson also. I have 2 lessons regarding prayer, right? Things to say, the posture that we take. We look at examples of those in the Bible. All those things are right there. So look in the library on the channel and just put in, teach us how to pray or how to pray. I got like 2 lessons, and each one has a different focus. So I think that will be fruitful for you. But to answer the question here just a little bit, let's look at Matthew 6 and 8. It's just a couple of 6 and 5, and it's just a couple of tidbits. Okay. This one thing that the Messiah says, 5 through 8 right here on Matthew, he says, "And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward." Okay, so a lot of people, they love to put on a show, right? Now, if I'm praying for you, I don't need to put on a show just because I'm in front of you praying. You ask me to pray for you, I'm praying for you, no big deal. But he's just talking about people out there, it's just performing. It's just performance, right? But that is their reward. The fact that someone's impressed with your prayer, guess what? That is your reward, okay? According to the Messiah. "But when ye pray, use not vain repetition," saying the same thing over and over, "as the heathen do. For they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking," because they say a lot, because they go on and on and on, right? Verse 8. "Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things you have need of before you ask him." So don't be like that. You're going to be honest. You're going to be sincere. There's no magic words. The Most High speaks every language. It's okay. All right. So even if you don't have a reasonable command of the English language, it's okay. He understands. And in fact, Paul even said that there's times when we don't even know what to pray for, and then our spirit groans in an utterance to let us know. So because Most High, he knows. But it's about you praying, okay? It's also the act and the sincerity of it, right? So 1, no showboating, right? You're not doing it to showboat, right? That's why I went there. Now we're going to go to Mark, get a couple more places as a few little tips, right? Mark 11. Remember, I have a whole lesson, 2 lessons actually on the channel that you can go back to for, more in-depth study on it. 11, Mark 11:24, which reads, "Therefore I say unto you, what things whatsoever you desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." So don't pray doubting. Pray knowing. Pray believing. Praying that he can do it. Pray that it will be done. Not my words, we just read it. What you desire. Okay? Now remember, James is going to tell you that if you pray for something you desire it and you don't get it, he's going to tell you why. Okay, we'll get to that. But in the meantime, believe. Don't be double-minded, okay? So let's go to Philippians. Go to a few more places real quick. Let's see. Philippians 4 and 6. Philippians 4 and 6. And what does it say? It says, "Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God." Supplication, tell him what you want. Supplication, tell him what you don't. Make it known. Okay? I just want you to remember that. Make it known. Sometimes they're afraid to ask. He already knows what you want. You might as well just say it. Spit it out. You hear that expression, just spit it out. So 1 Thessalonians 5 and 17. And it simply says, "Pray without ceasing." Okay, I heard someone, they had asked before, how long should I pray? Till you're finished. That's it. That's how long you should pray. Until you're done. There's no set time. Okay, so now let's go to James real quick. James 4:3. And look at what it says right here. It says, ye ask and receive not. He tells you why. Because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lust, right? Because you ask it for the wrong thing, or you have the wrong motives when you pray. The wrong motives. So, those are just some little tips. And then there's something else that I like to, it's a little acronym, a little acrostic, ACTS, right? ACTS. Acknowledge who he is, just like in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, right? Acknowledge who he is. Acknowledge who you are addressing and his greatness, right? Okay, the Father and Yeshua. Now, Yeshua said he did it to the Father because he was here with us at the time. Okay, he was on earth at the time, so he said teach you how to pray to the Father. But now you're going to go through Yeshua, but you acknowledge. Okay, you can acknowledge the Father and the Son, no problem. Then confess where you messed up. Hey, it's private, it's personal, no sense in lying. Be honest, be straightforward. Okay, confess, thank him for everything he has done, and thank him anyway. Thank him for doing what he's about to do, and thank him for everything he's already done. Okay, and then supplication. What do you want? ACTS, ACTS. If you want a little guide on how to pray, okay, use ACTS. Acknowledge, confess, thank, and supplication. What do you want? All right, next question for Garden Gal. What do we got?
This, how do you keep the Feast of Tabernacles? Most cannot go and live in a tent or hotel for 7 days. So are we not in compliance with y'all's law? Okay,
so there's much debate on keeping it, not keeping it, and stuff like that. Now I'm gonna assume that you want to keep it, you'd like to, and stuff like that. Okay, we do what we are able. To answer your question, we do what we're able. So if you're able to, buy a tent and a sleeping bag and sleep in your backyard, fine. If you're able to find a community or somewhere to go and camp or something like that, then you do that. Okay, so you're just doing what you're able to do. If you're not able to do it, then I mean, what can we say? Okay, what can we say? I mean, camp out in your living room. It's just you're trying. Okay, you're trying. You're putting forth the effort, and you want to make efforts to continue to do better on the next one. Should the Lord bless you with another year of life, you try to do better on the next one, do better on the next one, and the next one, Obviously, there's people out there who they do want to do it at all, right? They don't want to do any of them at all. They're like, hey, we're not in Jerusalem, so we don't have to do it and stuff. Not remembering that the first 40 years of them doing it in the wilderness, they were not in Jerusalem either. So it is what it is. But we do what we can. We do what we can. So if you can set up a booth, and some people, they try to get very, very specific, and they say, hey, some people go as far as say, oh, you need to go and get the type of trees that the Bible is talking about and stuff like that. Some people say just buy a tent. Some people are in RVs, things like that. So to each his own. To each his own on that one. This is not the scope of the lesson to debate what we should and shouldn't do, but just to answer your question, if you're able to, then you do it. I mean, whether it be in your backyard, whether it be you and a few other families who want to get together, it's like you can go camping for a week, whatever you can do. You're trying to memorialize this whole thing. Okay, so if you're able, you do that. If not, okay, you do what you can. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question.
Okay, next question is, what does it mean about pay no attention or give one day more importance than another? If the Shabbat is the Elohim day and it's important, can you explain in the Bible where it talks like it's no different? Maybe in Galatians.
Okay, so, the first thing I want to deal with is that particular text you're talking about in Romans 14, that text isn't really talking about the Shabbat at all. We have to understand that the early Jews, first, second, third century, the early Jews, but particularly in the first century, they would set aside days to fast, okay? And they usually did like Mondays, Thursdays to set aside fast and stuff like that. And so people, because we have to remember that Paul is writing letters, All right. So we don't know what he heard because he's responding. A lot of his letters are responses, right? We don't know what he has heard. We don't know what someone told him, but we do hear his response, right? And him being a Pharisee himself, he would already know that. He would know that they would set aside, days to fast. And so when we go to Romans 14, we're going to get a little bit of a context. So let's look at the first couple of things, right? But what it's trying to do is trying to establish what days are we to fast and whether or not we should eat the meats that are in the marketplace. Because of course they're mingling with Romans and stuff like that. So they're living or they're occupied by Gentiles, and there may be some meats that were sacrificed to idols or an unclean meat or something like that. So that's what he's addressing in the context. But let's go ahead and take a look at it in Romans 14. I'm gonna start at verse 1. And it says, "Him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations," for arguing and debate and stuff like that. Okay, welcome your brother into the faith, right? But not just to argue and fight. "For one that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth vegetables," or herbs, right? So one person said, yeah, we can eat meat. And when he says all things, he's not talking about all things, just, the lawful things, obviously. But he's because he went from one extreme to the next. Okay, he's saying all things. Okay, he's not talking about another human. Okay, he's not talking about eating a baby. You know what I'm saying? So we got to keep it all in context, right? But he says, "For one believeth that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs or vegetables," right? So somebody's vegetarian. We got movement today where a lot of people think we shouldn't eat meat at all. We should just be vegetarians, right? So let me silence that. So let's continue. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not, right? So the one who eats meat, don't despise the one who's a vegetarian. "And let him which eateth not judge him that eateth." So the vegetarian is not to judge the meat eater. "For God has received him." Okay, so God, he likes carnivores and vegetarians alike. Okay. "Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? Or his own master he standeth or falleth? Yea, he shall be holding up, for God is able to make him stand. One man esteem one day," so we're in verse 5. "One man esteem one day above another. It's better to fast on Monday, or it's better to fast on Thursday," like the Pharisees, right, in the first century. Okay. "Another esteem every day alike. One man esteem one day above another esteem every day alike." Not talking about the Sabbath. "Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind." Okay. Whatever day I decide to fast is fine. I'm not replacing the Sabbath. It's just a day of fasting. If I say, sometimes under the other ministry, my wife we used to fast once a month, like the second Wednesday of the month or something like that, right? And it was in preparation for the Day of Atonement. But there's no law for or against fasting on a Wednesday. We just fasted on a Wednesday. Or anytime I want to set aside a fast, I'll tell my wife, I say, hey, we're going to fast Tuesday, we're going to fast Monday, or whatever the case may be. But there's no special day, and we're not replacing the Sabbath. Okay? He said, let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. Okay? "He that regarded the day, regarded it unto the Lord." I'm fasting to the Lord, right? It doesn't matter if it's Tuesday, Wednesday. "And he that regarded not the day, to the Lord he does not regard it. He that eateth to the Lord, for he giveth God thanks. And he that eateth not to the Lord, he eateth not, and giveth God thanks." He's basically saying it's the same. Okay? It's the same. "For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself," right? We're bought and prayed for, right? We're bought with a price. "And whether we live unto the Lord, and whether we die unto the Lord. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's." He's just saying that we belong to him. We belong to the Lord. "For to this end Christ both died and rose and revived, that he might be Lord both of the dead and the living." Okay. Let's see. I'm going to get down. We're going to stop at 13. "But why dost thou judge thy brother? Or why dost thou set it not thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, as I live, said the Lord, every knee shall bow to me and every tongue shall confess to God. Now, 12. So then every one of us shall give account of himself to God. Let us not therefore judge one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block and occasion to fall in his brother's way. All right, so I wanted to go ahead and look at that and just point some of those things out. Basically, it was dealing with just two things: what day to fast and whether or not to eat meats and things like that, right? So it says, and in your question, like you were saying, what does it mean about pay no attention or give one day more important than another? Because it's not talking about the Sabbath. If the Shabbat is the Elohim day and is important, can you explain in Bible where it talks like it's no different? Maybe in Galatians, right? So no, you don't have to do that. There is a difference, okay? He set aside the Shabbat as a holy day. It's not moving, okay? The only difference, set apart day, when we look at Leviticus 23, are the high holy day, the annual high Sabbaths. Those are only ones that are different and can be on, different days of the week. This is talking about fasting days. And again, let's just remember that he's answering or responding to some disputes that may be in the church and people, arguing, going back and forth. Look at how he started. He's talking about, someone eats meat, another one does not. Okay, he said, look, you both are the same. It's both of you it's okay. All right. Now, we're not talking about unclean meats or nothing like that, because we went from one extreme to the next. Okay, it wasn't disputing meat versus meat, this meat versus that meat. It was like eat meats or vegetables, right? So it's one stream to the next, right? So we're not necessarily talking about unclean meats. We're just talking about, one person, eat meats. Now, again, they're talking about meats from the marketplace. Okay, did it come from another Israelite? Did it come from a Gentile? Was it sacrificed to an idol? That kind of thing. So people just kind of like, and some of them in that day just like, we're just gonna stick to vegetables. I don't know, right? Unless it's my own sheep, my own cow, right? So we're gonna go ahead and look at the next question, and let me see the question. I'll read it here myself. It says, I don't understand who are actually the Gentiles. If all through the Bible we are Yah's chosen, can you break down in a lesson where did all the ites, the I-T-E-S, the ites people come from, which of Noah's sons, since blacks are supposed to be from Shem, which is a good question. So I'm going to go ahead and deal with this real quick for you. Okay, so if we look, the suffix, okay, it's a Hebrew, right? So see, in the Bible, the suffix or Hebrew or Greek, ite, right? And it signifies a descendant of or belonging to. That's what the ite part means. It's descendant of or belonging to or of a people, right? Or a person, place, or a group. Because sometimes it can be from a land too. Okay, a person like we say, we are Texan or Arizonian, or you get Floridian, those type of things, right? But for the most part, it's of a people or a tribe. Okay. So that's where that comes from. It's forming an ethnical or tribal, name. Okay, just like we do the Israelites or the Moabites, right? But let's look at Genesis 10. And let's see if this will give you a little bit of an answer. And yes, I do have a lesson. If you look at lesson 1 and the color and the curses, Black History from the Bible, the very first lesson, color and the curses, right? You look at that, and that's going to break it down a little bit more, but we're going to deal with it a little bit right here. So let's go to Genesis 10. Genesis 10, and we're going to look at the first 8 verses, and we're going to look in the Strongs. Okay? We're going to look at it. We're going to look at the Strongs. And it says, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Medai, and Yavan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Ripha, and Togarmah. And the sons of Yavan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. And by these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Okay, so this is one of the first mentions of Gentiles in the Bible, right? First mention of Gentiles. We're going to look at the Strongs. Okay, we're going to look at Gentiles, which is Goyi, right? Let's look at what it says. Okay, in the lexicon it says a nation or people, usually a non-Hebrew people, usually a non-Hebrew people. I'll tell you why it says usually. And it says of descendants of Abraham. So even if it's a descendant of the descendants of Abraham or Israel, I'll tell you why, or swarm of locusts, blah blah blah. Okay, but in the Strongs it says a foreign nation, hence a Gentile. Also a troop of animals or a flight of locusts. Gentile, heathen, nation, people. Gentile, heathen, nation, people. Okay, so that's how we look at Gentile. Now, obviously, context plays a big role as well. But let's look at Japhet. Okay, now we're going to look under Strong's. We're going to look at Japhet. Okay, the third son of Noah, whose descendants after the flood settled on the coastal lands of the Mediterranean, spreading north into Europe and parts of Asia. Okay, so we look in history, we look at Europe, who are there, and parts of Asia, who's there, right? Now we understand migrations and stuff. Again, this lesson right here will not be super in-depth, okay? But we want to get an idea. We want to get you an idea to answer your question, right? Okay, Japhet, a son of Noah, also his posterity. Japhet, right? People who come from him. We're going to look again. So we got Japhet. Now we're going to go to Gomer. We look at Gomer, okay? Yavan, right? And it says Yavan, Ionia, or Greece. These are the Grecian people. Look, Greek people come from Japhet, right? Or Gomer by extension. It says a son of Japhet and grandson of Noah. Greece, Ionia, Ionians, okay? Location of descendants of Yaphan, okay? Yaphan, the name of the son of Joktan and of the race, Ionians, that is Greeks, okay? Descendants from him, with their territory also of a place of Arabia. Yavan, okay? So we're starting to get an idea. So again, we're talking about the Gentiles. So we got the Greeks, right? Arabians, Greeks, stuff like that, right? And we're going to look at Magog. Magog. Okay. The second son of Japhet, grandson of Noah, the progenitor of several tribes northward from Israel, okay, from the country of Israel, north of the country of Israel. So you look at the map, you look at Israel, head north, right? So his several tribes. It says the mountainous regions between Cappadocia and Media, and the habitation of the descendants of Magog, son of Japhet and grandson of Noah. Okay, Magog, the son of Japhet, also a barbarous northern region. All right, the barbarians. So you start looking at some of these European people, you get an idea of who are the sons of Japhet. Okay, but we're not done. We're not done. I don't want anyone to think that we're just kind of stretching it. We're just going to go with what the Strong say here. And we can get more in depth, but that's beyond the scope of this particular lesson. Okay. Okay, Madai. A people descended from the son of Japhet, and who inhabited the territory of Media, land inhabited by the descendants of Japhet, located northwest of Persia proper, south and southwest of the Caspian Sea. Look at your map. East of Armenia and Assyria, and west and northwest of the great salt desert of Aram. Okay, we'll look at that. Strong's. Madai, a country of Central Asia. Okay, Madai, or the Medes, Media. Okay, we look at our map, we see who's there, and we go from there. And after that, we can trace history. At least we can kind of narrow it down until we get something that's conclusive or really, really close to conclusive. Okay, so we're just breaking it down. Who are these people and where are these people, right? So we're not done. Let's look at Yavan. Okay, and I think we already said that these are the Greeks. Okay, So we look there, we see, I already read that one. These are the Greek speaking people, the Yavon. Then Tubal, let's go to Tubal. Tubal, okay, a region of East Asia Minor, perhaps nearly equal to Cappadocia. Tubal, a post-Diluvian patriarch and his posterity. Tubal, right, near Cappadocia. So now we're starting to see Europe in that region, okay, north of what we call Middle East, some in Asia, stuff like that. We're starting to get an idea. We're narrowing it down, right? So after Tubal, we're going to check Meshach. Meshach, son of Japhet, grandson of Noah, and progenitor of peoples to the north of Israel. They are the north of Israel. Descendants of Meshach often mentioned in connection to Tubal, Magog, and other northern nations, including the Mashi, a people of the borders of Chalcis and Armenia. Okay? The northern nations north of Israel. So you look at the map and you look at what's north of Israel, right? Now, Ashkenaz. Let's look at Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz, descendant of Japhet, a northern people, perhaps of Bithynia, okay? Bithynia, we've all heard of Ashkenazi Jews. So they're around still to this day, okay? So you get an idea what the Gentiles are. Now, let me go Togarmah real quick. Togarmah, okay. Obviously, son of Gomer, grandson of Japhet, great-grandson of Noah. Territory settled by the descendants of Togarmah, probably the area known as Armenia. Okay, so you're going to see a couple of things before we move on. Let me go ahead and address something before we move on. You're going to see a few things. You're gonna hear arguments. They're talking about, oh, well, you know, you got Israel, they're scattered all throughout and they became Gentiles and things like that. A couple of problems with that, but okay, fine. Let's go with it, if you will. Yeah, some have became Hellenized or became like the heathen. That part is true. But at the same time, when someone converts to this faith, those same people who basically say only that this is the Israel only doctrine, is only Israel, right? Only Israel is going to get the kingdom and stuff like that. This really goes with that. But those same people who say that, they say that someone cannot convert to the truth. And we see in the book of Esther that you can. Almost what's the second to last chapter, it says, you know, and all of them had the fear of the Jew, had fear of the Jews, and they became Jews, right? But they ignore that. They'll never really bring that up. They ignore that. So it goes one way, but it doesn't go the other way, right? So sure, that does happen where, you know, in their behavior, but their bloodline didn't change. They just, you know, doesn't believe what they should be believed. They believe in a God that they or their fathers had not known, right? So the Gentiles are those people. Now, those Gentiles, they can be grafted in. Same thing when Ruth was saying, you know, hey, your people will be my people and your God will be my God. Now, some people want to say, oh, no, she was an Israelite. No, she was not, because that statement would make zero sense. If you're an Israelite, you know you're an Israelite, they know you're an Israelite and all that, then why are you saying it doesn't make any sense? It's like me saying, you know, oh, don't leave me. I'm going to be Black American. I'm going to have American, you know, Black American values. Your people be my people. And they look at me like, oh, okay. You're born here? Yeah. Your whole life? Yeah. Okay. Because it wouldn't make any sense, right? So I just wanted to give you that. Basically, when you look at it, it's Europe and parts of Asia. And you see who those people are, right? Now this is just a little cursory, you know, response there. I mean, we can definitely go a little deeper. I would definitely go to, you know, the lesson, you know, Color and the Curses, Black History from the Bible on this channel. And then there's obviously a bunch of other resources, right? You can go, if you want to read volumes of the Josephus, if you want to read Babylon and Timbuktu, if you want to go look at some other documentaries that are out there, and by all means, I encourage you to do so, okay? Now, let's go ahead and look at the next question. It says, since all good things come from Yah, are his chosen, and since we are under the curse, does that mean that no matter how hard we work, get educated, provide for our families, we will never be successful? Will Yah or is it wrong for Yah's people to be blessed with health and financial independence in this world? Doesn't the Bible speak of such blessings? Okay, sure. But to answer the first part of your question, it says, will we never be successful? Okay, what's the first part of this question I want to answer? Okay, since all the good things happen for Yah and his chosen, since we are under the curses, does that mean that no matter how hard we work, get educated, provide for our families, we will never be successful? No, it doesn't mean that. Will Yah, or is it wrong for Yah's people to be blessed with health and financial independence in the world? No, it's not wrong, because plenty of Yah's people are blessed financially and are blessed with good health. Plenty. If you want examples, in the Bible, you can look at Joseph, you can look at Daniel, you can look at Mordecai, you can look at David, you can look at Solomon, you can look at Boaz. I can go on and on and on. And plenty of them were blessed. Plenty of them were blessed. Okay? And the people I said is after the curses. Okay? Plenty of them. We're going to look at Genesis 13:2, but if we look at, before the curses, Abraham, he was blessed. He had good health, and had money. It was just fine. People see what happens is what worries me is that we come from a place, I'm talking about before our awakening, before we knew who we were, had our identity and our faith. What worries me is that we were conditioned in this world with very limiting beliefs. And we think that, we're under a curse. And so then we rest on our laurels and we feel like we don't have to do anything because it doesn't matter. I'm under a curse. Now, has the curses fall upon us? Absolutely. Are we under a curse? Yes. Have the curses completely lifted off our shoulders and there are no more curses? No. But that has to do with Israel as a whole. I'll give you an example. When we look at, the coloring curses, we look at Deuteronomy 28, we start looking through those curses, and then we look through history and we can find places where those curses have taken place. Okay, from then all the way up until now, we can see certain things where the curse is taking place, right? But here's the thing. Not each or all Israelite suffered each curse, right? He named a lot of curses. Some Israelites went through some of those curses and others went through other curses in combinations, right? So yeah, as a whole, cursed. However, that's as a nation as a whole, because when he was addressing us in Deuteronomy 28, he was addressing us as a nation. So collectively, we will be under a curse. Individually, you can be blessed. Okay, so we're going to go over here to Genesis 13, and let's read verse 2. It says, and Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And Abram, or Abraham, before it was Abram before it became Abraham. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. Very, very rich. Let's go on over to Genesis 26. Genesis 26. Genesis 26 and 12. Then Isaac sowed in the land and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. He's rich and he's blessed. He's rich and he was blessed. We're going to keep going. We're going to go to Genesis 41. Genesis 41. And I'm going to start at 37. Genesis 41, let's read 37 to 44. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? We're talking about Joseph. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, second in command. And according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. Man, he's going to be second in command. I'm the only one above you. Everybody else is subject to you, right? Second in command in this kingdom. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. All the land of Egypt. 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Joseph was very successful, very blessed, sold into slavery by his brothers. Egypt was their captivity. Okay. We know this is a little bit later when, Moses come along and all that, but still, Egypt was not their land. Okay. So let's go on over to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, we're going to go to chapter 7. 7 and 9. Verse 9 says, and I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thy enemies out of thy sight, and I have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. Okay? 2 Samuel. I made you, blessed you, made you famous, made you wealthy. Let's continue. Let's go to 1 Kings. 1 Kings. Okay, we're going to go to chapter 10. I'll give you a few more examples. Chapter 10. I'm going to start at 14. Okay, we're going to go 14 to 25. 14 to 25. Let's see here. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 603 score and 6 talents of gold. Besides that, he had of the merchantmen, and of the traffic of the spice merchants, and all the kings of Arabia, and all the governors of the country. And King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went to one target. And he made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 pounds of gold went to one shield. And the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. And moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with the best gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind, and there were stays on either side of the seat, of the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the stays. And 12 lions stood there on the one side, and the other upon the 6 steps. And there was not the like made in any kingdom. And all of Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted for in the days of Solomon. Silver, get that silver. We want gold cups. That's silver. Don't bring that silver over here. Only gold touched these lips. Okay? Let's talk about how blessed he was. Right? And for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with a navy of Hiram. 1 in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth with riches and for wisdom. And all the earth sought Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. Right? And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver, vessels of gold, garments and armor, and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year. They kept bringing this year by year. Okay, this was your Bezos. This was your Elon Musk. Right? This was your Warren Buffett. This was the richest man. Okay? So, as a homework assignment, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, in the New Testament, I want you to look at some rich people. Okay? We got Lydia, Joseph of Arimathea, Zacchaeus, Barnabas, Philemon, right? Now, a couple of places. I'll put it in the description box down below. But we have Matthew 27:57. Check the description box down below. Luke 5:27-29, and Luke 8:1-3. Okay. So let's go on to the next question. If a secular people who do not keep Yah's laws and commandments, or maybe they do, but still also keep Christmas, but you see that these people, and they are flourishing financially and providing for their family and their children, are prosperous, are we saying that these black people are not of Yah? They seem to be blessed more and are giving more than what we are doing, who ate in Yah's truth, or who are, I'm sure, are in Yah's truth. Well, I understand what you're saying. There's a couple of scriptures here, because a lot of us in the truth, when we don't prosper like the other people do, we start to feel some type of way, right? So one of the things we want to remember, let's go to Matthew 5:45. And 45 says this: that you may be children of your Father which is in the heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and he sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Well, we have to understand that we cannot grow jealous in that, because we have to consider something, and we're going to get to it. I want to get to a couple of these places real quick. Let's go to Psalm. I want to go to Psalm real quick to, let's see here. Psalm 73. Let's hit these places real quick. Psalm 73, and we'll read 3-17. I want you guys to look at something real quick. For I was envious at the foolish, and when I saw the prosperity of the wicked, right? For there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. This is exactly what you wrote about, right? They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride encompassed them about as a chain, and violence covered them as a garment, right? They think they're protected. They're not really worried about anything. Their eyes stand out with fatness. That's the haughtiness and that pride, right? They have more than heart could wish. They have more than they can desire, right? They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. Okay, you getting that? They set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walketh through the earth, right? Therefore, his people return hither, and waters of a full cup are wrung out to them. And they say, how does God know? Or is there knowledge in the Most High? Like, what's the big deal? Like, why should they change what they're doing? They seem to be blessed. Things seem to be going great for them. Why? What's the big deal? Why do I need God, right? Or they may say, oh, God is already blessed. Can't you see God's blessing me, right? Behold, it says right here, it says, behold, these are the ungodly who prosper in the world. They increase in riches. Verily, I have cleansed my heart in vain and washed my hands in innocency. Like, why? You probably think, well, why am I doing all this? I'm trying to obey God. I'm trying to avoid this, avoid that. I'm trying to walk. I'm trying to be righteous and all that, right? He said that. I wash my hands in innocency, in vain, for nothing, right? For all the day long have I been plagued and chastened every morning. You frustrated, right? Let's see here. Every morning. For if I say I will speak thus, behold, I should offend against the generation of thy children. And it says, when I thought to know this, it was too painful for me. You're just sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? Until I went into the sanctuary of God, then I understood their end. And that's what's going on here. You have to understand, okay, if they're not serving the Most High, consider their end, right? Consider what's next for them. What do they have coming? They're also blessed on the earth, but then what? What happens after that? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about their faith if they're not serving the Most High, right? Jeremiah 12:1, it says, righteous art thou, O Lord, when I plead with thee, yet let me talk with thee of thy judgments. Wherefore does the way of the wicked prosper? Like, why are they prospering? Wherefore are all they happy that deal very treacherously? Because people, they get ill-gotten gains. And they think they're safe. They think everything is good because they got the money. They have the money, right? Let's go back to Proverbs. Okay, we're going to go back to Proverbs 3. And when we read 3, we're going to go 9 and 10. Proverbs 3. I'm in Psalms. Never mind. Hold on. Proverbs 3, 9 and 10. Honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thy increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall birth out with new wine. When you check the wicked people, are they doing this? Are they getting the first tenth of their increase? See, so now if they're not, then you need to consider their end. Although you shouldn't focus too much on other people and what they're doing, but you get my point. Let's go to Proverbs 10 and 22. Proverbs 10 and 22. It said, the blessings of the Lord, it make it rich, and he added no sorrow with it. Because if he's blessing you with it, he's adding no sorrow to it. Now consider, the Hasatan blesses people too. He gives them things too. Have you considered the price that they're going to have to pay? Okay. Proverbs 13. Let's keep going. Proverbs 13 and 22. The good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. So the sinners are getting wealth, and then when they die, there's a wealth transfer to the just. Interesting. It's not the money. It's not the blessings. It's how you're getting the money. It's how you are being blessed. Who is blessing you? Proverbs 21 and 20. Proverbs 21 verse 20. There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spend it up. Some people, they get money and they just burning through it. So sometimes they seem blessed, but it could be temporary. Consider the statistics of former pro athletes, lottery winners, a lot of money. And on average, all broke 3 to 5 years. And these are large sums of money. We have to understand that money isn't the only measure of blessings as well. The Most High blesses people different ways. Blesses us with the gifts of the Holy Spirit. Blesses us with a sound mind. He blesses some of us with intellect. Blesses some with money. Blesses some with health. Blesses some of us with a spirit of discernment, giftedness, prophecy, teaching. We'll be rich in blessings. It depends on how you use it. If we seek first the kingdom of God, then all these other things will be added unto us. All right, so next question. It says, so if an African brother and sister living in America, are we saying that all Africans are from Ham? And if you are black living in America and your ancestors were brought over as slaves from Africa, then we are from Shem? Asking the question, right? It's likely, okay? It's likely, all right? It's not a guarantee, it's just likely. But remember, Israel came out a mixed multitude. We have to keep that in mind. Came out a mixed multitude. And so look at the lesson. Again, like I said, the Black History from the Bible, the color and the curses, it goes into that as well. Okay, and then we go into a little bit of history and we go from there. So also review the Table of the Nations. Well, you just heard me read, Genesis chapter 10. And you start tracing the migrations of the Israelites through history. And you can look at documentaries like, White It Out. That kind of gives a little bit of clarity on it. You can look at Hebrews to Negroes documentary there. That'll help you, give you a little bit better understanding it too. Now, I think both of them have like 3 or 4 parts, right? Hebrews and Negroes got 2 or 3 parts or something like that as well, right? So these are some very good documentaries that really get into really get into the history. Hebrews and Negroes, they get into haploid groups and blood types and things like that. So these are a lot of good resources for you, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next question here for you. And let's see here. It says, why do we as woke blacks seem to have to be so judgmental of other blacks? I see successful blacks who are wonderful folks, but are not keeping Yah's holy days and worship on Sunday. So when I share with them, they just don't pay attention, as they are doing much better than me on the financially and life living side. So they think all is well. So why change? They ask me if Yah's not blessing them. So it's kind of hard. So I don't have that answer. Well, just understand, it's not your job to convince. Sometimes we feel like we can, check off a box, and when we administer to someone that, hey, they believe, I convinced them, okay, cool, I got it. It doesn't, right? All you can do is plant the seed, right? People learn the easy way. Sometimes people learn the hard way. Take away their money, and then what do they have? What do they do? You take away someone's power, then you see what do they have. It's kind of like when someone goes to jail. That's all of a sudden they find God, right? Because you took away their freedom. You took away their liberty, and so now Most High has their attention. You take away their money, and then they may have their attention. You look at the rich young ruler, you take away his money, now he don't want to do that. He goes away crying, right? So it's not your job to convince, but just refer back to the, what I just answered, a few questions ago, right? So they don't pay attention because they trust in their wealth. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so what does the Bible teach in interracial marriages, and are you lost for marrying outside your race? There's less than 7% black males available for black women, so dating and marrying outside may be the only option if women want a family. Okay, so I do have a lesson dealing with that, and it's entitled Interracial versus Interfaith Marriage. Okay, so look at that lesson there. I had a debate on this very topic. Okay, obviously my opponent was saying that it's against Torah, it's against the law, the Torah, to date outside your race, outside of Israel, right? And so obviously it's like a 3-hour debate, 2.5 hours, a 3-hour debate, and I'll just cut to the chase. A couple of times when we did a cross-examination, I was able to ask him a number of questions. One of the questions that I asked him, and I said, okay, how many sons did Jacob have? And he said 12. I said, okay, so they had wives, right? Because that's how everyone came to be. He said, yeah. I said, well, who were their Israelite wives? And he was stunned. He was stunned. He was stumbling. He was like, well, he didn't know what to say, right? He was trying to answer. And I said, because we can't include Dinah, that was their sister, so that doesn't count, that's out. And I said, they didn't have Israelite, they're the beginning, they're the progenitors of each tribe. So they had to marry someone who wasn't of Israel, right? Because they were Israel, their father's Israel, and they were the 12 tribes, they were the 12 sons, right? And so he couldn't answer that question. But also, if we look at the tribe of Benjamin, what happened there? In case for those who don't know, Benjamin was about to be wiped out. Okay? About to be wiped out completely. Let's go ahead and go over to it real quick. Let's go to the book of Judges. This lesson is a little bit longer, but I want to get to all the questions. So let's go to the book of Judges. I'm going to start at 20. Judges 20. And I'm going to read 46 and 48. So you have some context, right? 46, it says, so that all which fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 men that drew the sword. All these were men of valor. But 600 men turned and fled to the wilderness unto the rock Rimmon, and abode in the rock Rimmon 4 months. And the men of Israel turned again upon the children of Benjamin and smote them with the edge of the sword. This was civil war. As well as the men of every city as the beast, and all that came to hand. Also, they set on fire all the cities that they came to. So, okay, there was a civil war in Israel, and and the rest of the tribes about to wipe out Benjamin. All right, about to get rid of him. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go to chapter 21. It says, now the men of Israel had sworn in Mizpah, saying, there shall not any of us give his daughter unto Benjamin to wife. Right, so now Benjamin, they're about to get wiped out, and they can't even procreate because they cannot get an Israelite woman. Right? So let's look at it. And the people came to the house of God and abode there till even before God, and lifted up their voices and wept sore, and said, O Lord God of Israel, why is this come to pass in Israel, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel? Like, why should one of our tribes be wiped out? They're crying. It's like, okay, it's going to be 11. Okay. And it came to pass on the morrow that the people rose up early and built there an altar and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the children of Israel said, Who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up with the congregation unto the Lord? For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to the Lord of Mishpah, saying, He shall surely be put to death. And the children of Israel repented them for Benjamin their brother, and said, There is one tribe cut off from Israel this day. How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them of our daughters to wives? And they said, What one is there of the tribe of Israel that came not up to Mizpah to the Lord? And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For the people were numbered, and behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there. And the congregation sent thither 12,000 men of the valiantest, and commanded them, saying, Go and smite the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, with the women and children. And this is the thing that ye shall do. Ye shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that has lain by man. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had known no man by lying with any male. And they brought them unto the camp of Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. And the whole congregation sent some to speak to the children of Benjamin that were in the rock Ramon, and to call peaceably unto them. Okay, I don't want no trouble, right? Call peaceably unto them. And Benjamin came again at that time, and they gave them wives which they had saved the lives of the women of Jabesh Gilead, and yet so they sufficed them not. And the people repented them for Benjamin, because that the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? There are no Benjamite women. Okay, there are no Benjamite women. And they said, There must be an inheritance for them that be escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe be not destroyed out of Israel. Albeit we may not give them wives of our daughters, for the children of Israel has sworn, saying, Cursed be he that giveth a wife to Benjamin. They had sworn they weren't going to do it. So an Israelite of any of the other tribes cannot give an Israelite woman to Benjamin. Then they said, Behold, there is a feast of the Lord in Shiloh yearly in the place which is on the north side of Bethel, and on the east side of the highway that goeth up from Bethel of Shechem, and on the side of Lebanon. Therefore they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, Go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and see and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, then come ye out of the vineyards, and catch ye every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. And it shall be, when their fathers or their brethren come unto us to complain, that we will say unto them, Be favorable unto them for our sakes, because we reserve not to each man his wife in the war. For ye did not give unto them at this time, that ye should be guilty, right? So they're going to talk it over for them, right? And the children of Benjamin did so, and took them wives according to their number, and of them that danced, whom they caught. And they went and returned unto their inheritance, and repaired the cities, and dwelled in them. And the children of Israel departed thence at that time, every man to his tribe and to his family, and they went out from thence, every man to his inheritance. Benjamin almost gets wiped out. No Israelite wives. So I leave you with that. And let me just answer this last question for you. And why do Israelite followers, and those that believe in the Black Awakening, always sound so fierce, angry, and separatist in how they present Yah's word and teach the truth? Well, Selective outrage, misplaced anger. That's how I can answer that. Selective outrage. See what I tend to believe. You may disagree, but what I tend to believe is that the people, they had their awakening and they found out. They realized really, really bittersweet. Oh, it's sweet that, oh, I found a history. I found a, see, most other people, they can't relate to us being everything, that we didn't belong to anything, right? We're just children of slaves and that's it. When we're taught in school, all there is just, the slave ships that came over here and we go from there. We're just slaves and that's it. That's the only thing they teach us. They don't teach us what it was. What were we doing? Who were we before we got on the ships? What were our language? What was our culture? What did we do? Couldn't tell us, right? And when we finally come into the knowledge of the truth and get a little bit of information, because knowledge puffeth up. So what happens, we find out who we are. Oh, we have a language, we have a culture, we have tradition, we have the Most High Yah, we have all that. We have the oracles of God. Oh, he was talking to us. We have an identity. We have a land. We don't have it anymore, but we had a land. Okay, these were people of color. So it's sweet. And then when we get to the curses in history, it's bitter. And so they become very, very angry with the people who had us in captivity. They become angry at the Arabs. They become very angry at the Grecians. They can become very angry at the white man. And they don't appreciate what was done to them. Problem is, they don't consider why it was done. They don't consider who did it. They don't consider why it was done to us. It's because we broke the covenant. Daniel says that. And all these curses fall on us. The white man is simply a belt that the Most High used to try to get us back in line. Doesn't excuse what they've done, because the Most High already said he's going to deal with them too. They take it way too far. Even when Paul, when he goes to preach to Romans and Corinthians and Ephesians and Thessalonians, he goes to the Gentiles to provoke us to jealousy. And it works. It's working. But we don't consider who did it. So I'm gonna leave you with Isaiah 42 and 24, which read, "Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord? He against whom we have sinned. For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his laws." Deuteronomy 28. And Daniel said, all these curses has fallen upon us because we were not obedient. And what the white man has done, or to some people is doing, it was prophesied that it was going to happen. But whose fault is it? Who's doing it, and then whose fault is it? That's what we have to consider. Because had we not broken the covenant, look at the first 8 verses of Deuteronomy 28, and we're supposed to be blessed and ahead of every nation. So keep that in mind. This has been the AMA Ask Me Anything. This one is volume 4. And again, you have any other questions, put it in the comment section down below. We can have a volume 5, no problem. Now, before we get on out of here, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Don't forget to smash that notification bell, because I don't want you to miss any of our lessons. And if you feel so inclined to donate, because you feel like you're being fed by these lessons, check the description box down below. So until next time, search the scriptures and prove all things. Shalom, Israel.